Hi, everybody. Welcome to our weekly live stream, Saturdays at 4 o'clock. We are here together with Jackie and Torey.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining
Hello.
us this week.
So we are going to start with some news and some updates, and then we'll talk with Jackie and Torey a little bit, and we'll open it up for your questions a little bit later. So Jackie, do you want to start off with some news?
Yeah, so news update is that New York State is actually currently pretty close to repealing its statewide loitering law. I know that may not on its face sound like a trans issue, but loitering laws are often described as walking while trans bans or stop and frisk 2.0. Um, That's because they basically empower police to harass human beings on the margins. That's Black people, transgender people, particularly women who are engaged in sex work, women of color, low income women, and homeless people who are disproportionately represented among the LGBTQ community. LGBTQ youth actually are 120% more likely to be homeless than their non LGBTQ peers. So loitering ban, again, while it may not be explicitly discriminatory, disproportionately affects queer people, disproportionately affects transgender people, and particularly queer and trans people of color. So that would be a big step forward for New York to repeal that walking while trans ban.
Mhm. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah. And any other news? That's the main news for today?
Um, that was our main news report for today. Keeping it
Okay.
short so we can get into the question and answer as many of your questions as possible.
Yeah, and we see that there are a number of people here with us in the live, so I just put a little message in there. Please say hello. And to our people who are regularly here, we thank you so much for being here and thank you for the support in the group for us and for all the people in the group. The group has grown to 500 members now in just a couple of short months. So Jackie and I are just so appreciative, so grateful for your presence in our group and your participation. And if you're not in the group, that's okay too. You can always watch us from the page, which is public for anybody to watch and participate and learn from what we're posting and what we're sharing. So I'll share a couple of announcements. And Jackie, you can let me know if I've left anything out. So big announcement. Our podcast comes out Tuesday. So our very first episode is Tuesday. So please go to your podcast app, wherever you listen to podcasts, and you'll find Transgender School podcast, and that'll be episode 1. And we're planning on starting out with doing it monthly, and so it should be the first Tuesday of every month we'll have a new episode out. And thank you for those of you who are commenting and saying hello. I'm trying to all of yours. So good to see you all. We thank you so much for being here. And Jackie will probably comment on some things in there. And we'll be ready for your questions as well. So our podcast is out Tuesday. We want to remind you about our course again. Our course is coming out in February 23rd, 25th, and 27th. It's the same course. It's a course on being an ally, how to be a true ally. And we've been working hard on the content for that course. We're really, really proud of what we've got for you in that course. And we hope you'll sign up, and we hope you'll share it with other people. So yes, those of you who are here and who are asking if you're doing it right, you're doing it right 100%. We see you, and we are so thankful that you're commenting. And lots of people watch after the live stream, which is great too. But we really, really appreciate those of you who make the effort to be here live. Thank you so much. We've done 3 podcasts already. So one is ours, and one what we want to thank Greg Berard, dear friend, who interviewed us. Nice long one. So if you want lots of time hearing Jackie and I talk and share our experiences and share the things we're so passionate about, please listen to On Living a Full Life podcast with Greg Berard. And that one's really our story and what we're trying to do and why we founded Transgender School and what we're doing in Transgender School, and lots about our family story and Jackie's coming out story. And then a shorter episode, which is also great, is on Edu Switchboard, which is an educational podcast, but with Jana Parker. And we were so honored to be on her show. And she wants to provide as many resources as possible for teachers, parents, administrators and staff and everyone in education to provide support for kids who are coming out as transgender and transitioning. She's providing resources and support for all kids and families in education. And our episode obviously was specifically about support for transgender kids. So please listen to that. And then our own podcast. We also were interviewed. We're really honored to have been interviewed on KBOO Public Radio in Portland on a wonderful show called the Trans Positive Radio Show. And that is not out yet, but we did that interview and it was a wonderful interview. And so we'll keep you posted on when the link is available for that. And all of these were very exciting opportunities for Jackie and I to share what we're doing in Transgender School. And if you are in our group, I added to the group in the files section today a Word document that has listed 14 items where you can find Jackie and me. It has all of our social media links, and it also has all the links to our podcast episodes, our YouTube links. We're also going to put our podcast on YouTube. I think that video is actually already there. I shouldn't tell you, but you can watch our podcast, I think, before you even listen to it. But please listen also, on Apple. It's nice to see the analytics of how many people are listening. Please rate and review if you can and subscribe to the podcast. But everything's also on our YouTube page, and all of those links are in that doc that's in the group. So if you want to just spend hours and hours with me and Jackie, you could just click on all 14 of those links and find us everywhere. So we want to make sure to share that with you. Anything else, Jackie, that you would add to that?
I think that covers it. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hosting our first in-depth courses next month, almost this month, but it'll be last weekend of February. So really looking forward to that, and hope everyone who's out there will check it out and sign up at transgenderschool.org/ally.
Right. I forgot the link, transgenderschool.org/ally. And this course is all about what it means to be an ally and our top recommendations for that. We're going to have video clips, and we're really working hard to make it great for you. And I see that some of the people in the group right now have already signed up for the course. So we thank you. We know who signed up for the course, and we see those registrations come in, and it just makes us so happy. So thank you for those of you who signed up. And if you haven't yet, we hope that you will consider doing so. And if there's a need for any scholarships, please reach out to us privately. That is available. And we actually have friends as well who have offered scholarships themselves. So there's lots of opportunity. If being able to pay for it is the barrier, that we do not want that. And we want you to reach out to us and reach out to anyone who's offering a scholarship, because they are being offered. So those are our announcements. So I don't want to say anything embarrassing, but I would just want to say I'm so excited that Torey's with us today. I love and adore Torey. She's part of our family. And Torey and Jackie have been together, I think, just a little over 2 years. And if you're a parent of an adult child or a teenage child, you are no stranger to concerns about relationships in their life and wanting them to find love if they want to. Not everybody wants to, but wanting your kids to be in healthy, happy relationships, friendships, and professional relationships. And if they so choose, love relationships. And so I'm very, very blessed. We are very, very blessed in our family that Torey's part of the family. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to see each other and spend as much time together because of COVID in 2020. But before that, I would make every effort to visit Jackie and Torey as much as I could, which is pretty regularly since I travel a lot for work and travel to their area. And they were always incredibly kind to welcome me, to, go out to dinner and do things together, and always make time for me. And for, young folks in their 20s, I don't know how fun it is to make that time and, have your old mom tag along. But I've gone with them to events that they were having for their work. They welcomed me. I've gone with them to lots of, Torey brought me to an amazing comedy show that Jackie wasn't feeling well. But it was, that's the kind of relationship we have, that Torey and I still went, and I was still welcome to go. And Jackie's brought me to I've gotten to go to some of her talks and events and panels and things, that she's done. And so, those of you who are parents or have nieces, nephews, young people in your life, whoever it may be, or if that's you're the young person, know how much that means to family members, to be included and to be close in those ways. And I thank you, Jackie and Torey, for creating that relationship in our family and with everyone in our family. We have a big family, extended family. My parents are a big part of everything. I think they're out there. I know they were planning to. If you're here, Mom and Dad, I know you feel the same way, that the way that Jackie and Torey include all of us and prioritize us and make time means a lot. So how about if we start with Jackie and Torey just sharing a little bit about their relationship and how they met, and that relationship story that we all love to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm so glad to be joining the live stream today. I think what Jackie and Bridget are doing with Transgender School is so fantastic, and I'm glad to be a part of that in any way that I can. Jackie and I actually originally met, although we live in San Francisco now, we originally met in Michigan, which is where I am originally from. We were both on a congressional campaign for Rob Davidson, who was running in Michigan's 2nd Congressional District. He unfortunately did not win, but we were both field organizers on his campaign. So we originally met as coworkers, which was kind of an interesting situation because we held the same position on the campaign. So we were kind of in direct competition with each other, which was kind of a funny dynamic for the beginning of our relationship. Because I was hired on first, she was hired on second. And so there was kind of, oh, is there going to be competition here? So that was kind of funny dynamic at the beginning of our relationship. And when we met, and I was actually who welcomed her to the campaign. She came to my office. We each had our own offices, and she came to my office first. And so that was kind of how we originally met. And then we kind of got together after we would have kind of hangouts with the campaign staff at the campaign manager's home that he was staying in. And we one night, kind of just decided to, meet up on our own afterwards. And and just kind of went from there. And then I ended up moving out to San Francisco, and I work in the political sphere as well. So I've worked on a number of campaigns out here, and we've kind of had overlap of supporting each other's candidates and stuff out here as well. So that's kind of how we got to where we are 2.5 years later.
Yeah, it's crazy. It doesn't feel like 2.5 years ago sometimes, but a lot has happened. It's been quite a 2.5 years.
Yeah. And I remember I got to visit Jackie in Michigan when she was on that campaign. And I didn't actually get to meet Torey when I was there, but I heard Torey's voice. I don't know if you knew this, Torey, because you were all on a call together, and I was at the camp. The only way I got to visit Jackie when she was working on the campaign in Michigan was to go to Michigan and to go to volunteer, right, Jackie? She's like, You can come visit me, but I'm going to put you to work. And I did. And I knocked doors, and I made calls, and I did texts, and she taught me how to be a volunteer on a campaign, which was very exciting. And they had late meetings every night. Like they had to be on a conference call with everyone, all the field organizers and that whole team. And so I was still there, and we were just getting takeout and sitting in the office that Jackie was working in, which she was running. And so I got to hear, I don't know if I was supposed to hear the whole meeting, but I heard a little bit of the meeting. I'm sure I didn't hear anything top secret, but I heard a little of the meeting. And I was like, oh, who are all these people? And so I heard about Torey and, and all the people she was working with. And then later, I remember when the romance started budding, and Jackie was just so excited, and she thought Torey was great, and was, pretty excited to tell us that she thought something may be happening there more than friendship. And from there, it's just grown and been beautiful to watch. You two seem to get along really well. Like, is that, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of that conflict and drama that we often see in young relationships that I know I had in my young relationship. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, I mean, I defer to Torey, but I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I think neither of us is the type of person who really enjoys unnecessary confrontation. We're both pretty communicative about our feelings and our desires, so we try to just talk it through. But no, I've been in other relationships that have been different from that. So you do appreciate it when you know how difficult it can be otherwise.
And how about your community? I know you two have a lot of friends and you're involved in the Harvey Milk Club, and like do you feel like you have a nice group of friends and support as a couple? What is that like being in San Francisco?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a really great community here, and we do a lot of things as a couple because we work in the political sphere. So the most recent campaign that I was working on, it was kind of interesting because I actually started as a volunteer, and I was just volunteering because her former boss had endorsed the candidate, and so I was volunteering in that capacity, and so people knew we were together, and so we do kind of a lot of things as a couple, and we have friends in the political sphere together, which I think is cool to be able to share, that kind of a similar interest, I think as well is really important.
And our friends do tend to be queer. It's definitely easier to make friends with other young queer people living in San Francisco too.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's been hard during the pandemic, not being able to meet up with people in person, but looking forward to returning to being able to hang out with our friends in person.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I, as Jackie's mom, feel very comforted by the fact that you're in San Francisco and you're in, probably one of the most supportive places that you could be in the world, but I still wonder sometimes, and I'm curious, maybe as a question, do people, I find in our group and in the groups I'm in, like people want to label, what are you, how do you define, how do you identify? And is that really necessary, to put a label on your relationship, on your identity? And is that challenging? Is that something that's like people put you in that awkward position to label or define or identify, where you are in LGBTQIA, questioning queer, and how do you navigate that? Or does it not really come up because you're in such a supportive community that doesn't ask you those kinds of things?
Yeah, I want to hear Torey's thoughts on this too, but it's definitely something we've talked about. And for myself personally, identifying as bisexual, but being in a relationship with another woman, like, does that mean I'm in a lesbian relationship, or am I not allowed to call it that because I don't identify as a lesbian personally? So those things get kind of complicated, definitely. And I don't think the label is the most important thing. I think if the label is important to you, you should be able to identify with that, and that shouldn't be gate kept by other people. It should be kind of up to you. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Torey?
Yeah, I think living in San Francisco, I don't think a single person has or would ever ask us how we would identify our relationship. I think if we still lived where I am from, that probably would have been more of an issue, just, different areas of the country, different ways of thought. But I think here it's just people just accept you as you are. And I think I feel very similarly about labels, where I think labels can be really great for some people. They're not for others. But I definitely think if people do want a label, I don't think there should be any restriction on that. I think you should just accept people for how they identify. And if they identify with a label, great. If they don't, that's great too.
Yeah, exactly. Very well said. I think that's the bottom line, is that everybody gets to make that choice for themselves. And also it can change, we don't know. People, especially young people, are finding themselves and figuring out who they are. And maybe there's no label that describes it perfectly and they don't want to adopt, or maybe there is. A lot of young people I know are identifying as pansexual, is just not, loving people based on the connection versus a gender identification or any kind of labeling. So I think we're evolving and learning that, sometimes there's just isn't a label, or, and that's okay too. So we like to open it up for questions. If you have questions for Jackie and Torey. I did see one question. I'm wondering if I read it correctly, that was directed to Jackie. Even though you've accepted yourself, do other people still talk about you? And I'm wondering if that question is referring back to like friends, people.
I mean, not to my face.
Yeah, right. I mean, right.
I think
if you have any
they're
awareness.
definitely like maybe if I lived in a different part of the country, maybe if I had a different social circle, there would have been people who would have said shitty things to me directly.
Mhm.
But to be totally honest, aside from random people on the internet behind a keyboard somewhere who I don't know, no person who I actually know in real life who I came out to said anything not supportive to me.
Mhm.
I think that is the benefit of living in a culture that is largely accepting of trans people, is
Mhm.
that those people who are not supportive don't feel empowered to say those things.
Mhm.
And so they just
Mhm.
kind of, there were people who I came out and never got a response, or they just kind of dropped out of my life, stopped responding, stopped hanging out, things like that.
Mhm.
So I assume that those are the people who, in a different situation, may have said shitty things to me, but no, no
Mhm.
one's ever had the gall to talk shit about me to my face. They might regret it if they did.
I love that about you, Jackie. I can't imagine anyone doing that with Jackie because they know probably that she'd give them a piece of their mind. She's not gonna, let that go, whether it's me or a friend or anybody. And that's why I wanted so much to do this with Jackie, because she's very, she's very clear on what's acceptable and what's not to say to people, and how people, um, regardless of any aspect of their identity, deserve respect and kindness, and the treatment that anyone else we would offer to anyone else. And I so appreciate that. And I would echo the same thing that I've shared a little bit about how unfortunately I was very, very fearful before Jackie came out to the family way before she came out to anybody else. And so we had this, and many of you I know out there are parents of trans kids. So you have had this experience of what feels like this long period of being caught in between, because your child has come out to you, yet none of your friends and extended family know, right? And so during that time, there can be a lot of fear and anxiety around how are people going to react. And I definitely felt that. And when it came time to start sharing with people, I had nothing but support. And I agree with Jackie that I'm sure there were people who would not have been supportive, and they just chose not to be part of the situation. And that's their choice. But everyone who I did communicate with, and who did many people reached out, people who found out through other people reached out to express how supportive they wanted to be and how they wanted to understand and learn. And that's in part why we're doing this, because people still 4 years later are coming to me, I don't know if to you, Jackie, and saying like, help me understand more. And so many friends have come to me and said, oh my goodness, someone I know came out, and my friend's child came out, and my cousin or my niece or my somebody, how can you help us to understand, since you've been through this with Jackie? So we've had so much more of that than anybody, to this question about, do people talk about you and people say negative things? We really haven't heard any of that, even though I'm sure it's there. It's much more like, how can we be loving, supportive? How can we learn? A great need and desire for people to learn. And there's so much to teach. And actually, on that note, I wanted to throw out a couple of names of people that I started following this week that I highly recommend. One is, I hope I get it right. Shyler Baylor. Is that right? If anybody knows in the chat, please correct me. Did I get it wrong? Let me put my, yeah, no, I got it right. Shyler Baylor, Natalie Wynn, I believe, ContraPoint,
Mhm.
YouTube videos and social media, and also the YouTube page, Philosophy YouTube page. I believe that's the name of the page. The person is the person whose page that is. Her name is Abigail, and she just came out today on YouTube. Has been on YouTube, as she says, performing as male for 7 years for the audience, while in her actual life off of YouTube was transitioning as Abigail. And so I watched that video today. I highly recommend going there. I found it in one of my parent groups on Facebook of parents of trans kids, and the person who posted it said, that their trans kid said that video described what it feels like to be transgender better than anything their child had seen who is transgender. So highly recommend going there and checking that out. All right, we have a new question. We have a couple more questions. For Jackie and Torey, when did you start getting involved in politics? Oh, at birth, I think.
I think
No.
this is a little different for us. So I came from a family that was very, very politically involved, and it was always a big thing. I've been volunteering for political candidates since I was 17. So I've been very, very involved. I have joked that I was declared a political science major when I was about 12. If that had been a thing, I would have done it. So yeah, I've been involved for a long time now, about, I guess, 7 years now. So yeah.
Yeah. And then for me, I remember putting an Obama Biden sign in my window in like 2008 in my bedroom window and pissing off our Republican neighbors across the street. So they put up a McCain sign, and then I put up a sign making fun of Sarah Palin. So I've had that political bug since I was pretty young, but I didn't really realize that I wanted to work in politics full time and work and get involved in government until really I had already started college and already started majoring in something completely different, film production, and then realized it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do political science and switched colleges and switched majors and kind of went from there. Yeah. And then I see the other question, which I think is a good one that I would be curious to hear Torey speak to, because I know she has a lot of thoughts on this, is how/if TERF rhetoric has affected you being a woman who identifies as lesbian in a relationship with a trans woman.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I am a pretty online individual, so I definitely see a lot of the TERF rhetoric that goes on, especially with kind of a lot of the rhetoric coming from like J.K. Rowling and those kind of individuals. And I think definitely as a lesbian, there definitely are other lesbians who would try to invalidate my identity for dating a trans person. But I personally am not, I guess, affected in any kind of emotional way by those kind of arguments, because as a person who has also studied feminism and feminist thought to a pretty deep degree, I have a good understanding of my beliefs, and I understand that, being a TERF is ultimately denying science. It's denying the World Health Organization's definition of a woman. And I don't let some person who is denying science and misinterpreting rhetoric and feminist thought to determine who I am as a person. And I personally believe that, as a lesbian, I am attracted to women and also non-binary individuals. And I think that it is, I see what TERFs say, but it's something that I believe is very easily debunked with basic science and basic understanding of what gender is in general in our society now. And I think they are very much on the wrong side of history on this one. And so I, just don't let those kind of thoughts affect me. They don't, they don't define how I identify with myself, and I just kind of go forward in my relationship how I feel fit.
Thank you. And then one other question that we got before, actually ahead of time, that I think was interesting and important to discuss is whether we knew each other and whether we started dating before or after I came out and transitioned. And we did start dating and meet after I had already come out and transitioned. But I had been in relationships prior to transitioning. I was in a relationship that ended when I came out to that partner as trans. And I was in other relationships after transitioning before being with Torey, and all of that was really informative, and really, I think, shed a lot of light on the different dynamics of being perceived as a man or being perceived as a trans woman in a relationship and the differences there. And I think it's really important to me. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't be able to date anyone otherwise, but it's really important to me, and it brings me a lot of comfort to know that Torey has only known me as Jackie and that she's only ever known me as the person I identify as.
Yeah, and I would say that obviously it isn't always the way it works for couples to only know someone after they've come out, but I do also see it as you know, a really something that I'm very grateful for in a certain sense, because I think I am very lucky to only have known Jackie in kind of you know, her fully fledged form, you know, her true self, her true identity. And although I'm a person who would have accepted her if that had not been the case, I'm very glad that I've known her as the person who she is today and the person who she truly is, and wants to express to the world. And so I'm very lucky to have had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to point out that I did put I put a link in the comments to Natalie, I think it's Natalie Wynn's video on we've been throwing around the term TERF, which is trans exclusionary radical feminism, and it's associated with, of course, J.K. Rowling, and who is the author of all of the Harry Potter books, and it's extremely problematic. So those of you who want to know more about that, which I reasonably assume is everyone watching, please watch that video as well. She explains it incredibly well and really tries to dig into understanding why someone who could otherwise be very intelligent and you know, aware could buy into a philosophy and a belief system that, as Torey said, is so incorrect and flawed and disproven by science, medicine, you know, all valid forms of study and understanding what it means to be transgender. So please watch that video for a much more in-depth explanation. So I just wanted to add that resource. Any other questions? So a couple people are saying they're enjoying the stream and they're happy to be here. And I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy for you to all meet Torey, part of our family, Jackie's partner. And, you know, I know some of you are showing up late. No problem. You can watch the replay. But any final questions for Jackie and Torey? We're in the comments. We see, and we so appreciate all the kind comments. And you know, you've gotten to meet Jackie's grandparents, Jackie's dad. Jackie also has a wonderful sister who we don't mention a lot because she's not on social media at all and very private, although very also supportive, and, you know, says, oh yeah, you can talk about me. I just don't want to, you know, she just doesn't want to put herself out there on social media, which is, we respect, of course. But our daughter Joanna is very supportive of Jackie also. So you've kind of gotten to hear about and meet the whole family, you know, as far as our inner circle. So I'm very happy that we've been able to do that. And I hope that you can feel and see just the love in our family and the work that we're all doing to learn and grow together, and support Jackie, and I'll support each other in every way. Okay, I think we
so thanks so much everyone for joining. Really appreciate everyone being here, and I look forward to our next live stream next week.
Yes,
and of course, don't forget to sign up for our first in-depth course, where we will have a full 30 minutes. That's the length of one of these entire live streams, just of Q&A, along with an hour of content that we've been working on for months that will be really important and really helpful. You can sign up at transgenderschool.org/ally. Thanks again, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you. And I will put all the links. There were questions about putting all the links in the group, and I will put them all in the group. We'll make sure everything's there for you. We'll see you next week.
And thanks, Torey, for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here, Torey. Okay, bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.